Thing.
Great, thank you. We're gonna go live. All right, Gene, take it away.
Okay, we're gonna call to order the City of Sherwood Planning Commission work session for December 9th, 2025. It's a work session. Do you want us to do a roll call?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, the staff.
You're the staff.
Commissioner Swanson. Here, Commissioner Baines. Here. Commissioner Kai. Here. Commissioner Waidola. Present. Commissioner Barnes.
Here.
And Chair Simpson.
Here, thank you. Staff announcements?
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, we had a resignation on planning commission. Commissioner Walmsley resigned. I don't want to share kind of on the record the reasoning after the meeting. I can share more if you guys would like, but sorry, it's sad to see him have to resign. And that there will be a opening. So if you know people who are interested to serve on planning commission, we would accept applications now, but we'll get a formal posting out, put it on social media, all that sort of stuff. So we'll have an opening, and that would be for the remainder of Commissioner Walmsley's term. I don't know exactly how long that is, but we'll post all that information. So. And other than that, just wish everyone a happy holidays. This will, of course, be the last meeting of the year. And I do expect that we will have a meeting in January. And the topic is going to be the Old Town Strategic Plan, for a more formal meeting, public hearing, and a recommendation from the Planning Commission to City Council.
And you know if it's the first or second meeting?
Planning on the first, so it'd be the second Tuesday of the month of January, which would be the first meeting.
I'll make sure I don't have any. Okay.
Would be the 13th, January 13th.
Okay. All right, counselor update, Counselor Giles?
Yeah, so we had a work session this last week, and it was honestly one of my favorite meetings of the year is when all of the chairs of the different boards and commissions come and give us the goals that they have for next year so that we can put those all together and make our goals for the year. Our goal setting session is January 24th, I want to say. But there's a few, we heard a lot of very good things, and it reminded me again of how lucky we are to be in a city with such engaged citizens. I know that I talked to counselors and leaders from all over the state, and it's not this way in every city, where sometimes they have one or two people that are interested in the city stuff, and they've done it for 20 years. So you're really getting that one person's vision of what they want in the city. And so thank you for all of your service and what you gave to Gene. There was a few things that were brought up, from the traffic safety board, the budget. Budget is always, we had another budget meeting as well. Our goal for that is probably to just continue to look for new sources of revenue. The way that things are funded here in Oregon, it's difficult to have enough money to pay for the things that we want, and there's never enough. So, and you can't just keep taxing everybody. So we are looking for other ways to do that. One of the big things that I'm excited for is the art commission has found an artist for the medallions, the permanent medallions on the bridge. I've loved the ones that the students put out there, but those are not a long-term solution, and we would love to have medallions that could be integrated throughout the city for different interest, points of interest. I don't know how many people know, but the Cannery Square used to be a brick factory, and many of the buildings in Portland were made with bricks from that factory. So we would love to have a little thing on the sidewalk to remember that, or something along that lines is what the council was thinking. We had our first report from the youth committee or board. I can't remember what they're called, but and they even marched with us in the parade. They are still working on figuring out what their scope and goals are going to be for this next year, because they want to tackle some real projects and they want to get more engagement from the youth. And great report from the Parks Department. The thing that we heard loud and clear from some constituents is we want just a tiny part of a park that is accessible. So it doesn't have to be a fully accessible park. Obviously, we'd love that as a cornerstone somewhere, but and by accessible, it's not just for kids with accessibility issues. As we're an age-friendly city, we would like to make sure that we make it for people taking their grandkids that maybe have a cane or a walker or something, that they would be able to at least engage with some of the activities that are currently accessible, except for the fact that there's bark chips down and they can't walk on the bark chips. So anyway, those are just a few of the goals. There were some really, really good discussions, and look forward to seeing how that plays out in the planning for the year. That's all I've got for my announcements. Are there any questions?
Oh,
All right.
good. All right. Moving on to our agenda item, which is the discussion of the draft Old Town Strategic Action Plan. And Counselor Giles has to leave early in our work session, and so I've asked if he could give us a quick perspective of the council's what the council has met on and what they've directed staff to do, so that we're not going counter with what the council has already set staff to task on. So if you could just.
Yeah. So about a year or so ago, well, there's been a broad support in all of council, I think, to shore up our old town. So if you look at what Old Town is today, we constantly were hearing what a gem it is. It's a little bit hidden, but people love it. They love the festivals. They love being down there and stuff like that. However, it's really about, in my mind, I was thinking it was nine blocks, and it's really half that. It's 4.5 blocks, because about half of that is residential or not occupied or something like that. And if you draw a diagonal line through Old Town, from where like the antique mall is to like the vacant lot up on the big tree stump on it there by the middle school. So everything on the city hall side of that line is kind of what people think of as Old Town. And people always, I would say, one of the most common questions, besides when are we getting food carts, is people would say, hey, how come we don't have a blank in Old Town, whatever that blank was? And so why don't we have a farm to table store? Why don't we have a bread bakery? Why don't we have a vegetable stand anymore? All these different things. And in reality, as you guys know, it's illegal for us as a city to say we want this particular business to open up a store here, and we don't want anybody else. We can't do that, but what we can do is we can say something like, well, we will waive a certain percentage of SDCs, or for these types of businesses. So if we want a bookstore, if we want a bakery, if we want whatever, the question is, well, what do we need there, right? What can it support? And do we need a boutique hotel there? We were looking at some of the the ideas with when we were talking about food carts and more restaurants. People said, well, there's not really enough people to sustain those. So how do you get more people but not have them during the day? There's more parking problem, and so we got a hotel idea, all over the place. So we brought in this first 40 feet to essentially help us solidify those thoughts into a plan that we can put in place for for the next decade or so, which would address a lot of these things. One, it would help us know what kinds of businesses we should be looking to attract and potentially how we could attract them. We don't have a big bucket of millions of dollars, but we might be able to attract them with some SDC waivers or some, grants through, for facade improvements or things like that, right? We don't know what the other cities have done this. We just wanted them to look at it and help us out there. The next thing was we love that it's a hidden gem, but we don't want it to be quite so hidden. We want there to be a little bit more wayfinding. And okay, how do you tell people that are just driving by 99 every day, there's something cool to your left, right? Come out here, spend some money on the weekend, come visit our restaurants or whatever it is, or coming down 12th and Sherwood. How would we get people off of that down Oregon Street? We have a sign that says Sherwood Old Town, but how could we, do that? And I know several of you know about the Public Works building being relocated. Well, that opens up a bunch of land potentially that's that parking lot and the where the field house is, and we own the lot over by the Cannery Square and the gravel lot over by the art center, and we own where the old schoolhouse was across from the middle or the Hawksview School. So the city owns some of that land, and it's like, well, what do we do with all of this stuff that keeps the coolness of Old Town and doesn't just put up buildings in a haphazard way that are kind of designed, in a less optimal way. You all know what buildings I'm talking about. I don't want to make them feel bad, but we do get a lot of complaints about one of the buildings in Old Town that recently went up, and we want to, but partially we didn't have anything in place to stop that. So that was me talking a lot. Gene, did I answer all your questions, give you enough direction of why the city hired these people?
Gives me perspectives. Does any of the commissioners have any other questions about goals and objectives that we should be looking at or filtering this process through to meet what the council is trying to gain out of this process? Yeah.
So Taylor, you mentioned lots of wayfinding and helping people find their way to Old Town, including on 99. So that just makes me think, is there kind of a prioritization of drawing people? 99 brings people from all over the place through there. Is there a prioritization of bringing people from outside Sherwood more into Old Town, or do you want Old Town to be more vibrant just organically and people within Sherwood being there primarily, or like what's the focus on that?
So the answer is yes. We don't want it to be overrun, right? We're not going to do anything like that. However, we want our businesses to thrive down there. We sometimes hear that, well, we close at 3 o'clock because there's not an evening crowd, right? And or there's not, there's some businesses that have very limited opening hours. And so we look at that and we go, okay, well, is there a way to change that so that we can say, hey, to get these grants or, facade grants, you have to be open, 40 hours a week or something, I mean, like to get some traffic down there versus the people that are like, well, I bought the building, I don't have to pay rent on it, so I don't really need to generate foot traffic or revenue or any of that. And so it's not just, and frankly, I don't want businesses, and I've heard other counselors say this, but my personal goal is I don't want businesses that are appointment destinations. So as much as I love them, I don't need any more hair salons. I don't need lawyers, doctors, dentists, stuff like that. I need more that are discoverable, like restaurants that have changing menus. I need a place like Cedar and Stone that has, oh, let's go see what their new stuff is, right? I mean, I need those so that it's we can say, hey, let's go for a walk. We're going to walk through Old Town and see what's new this month, right? See what things have changed. Hungry Hero has a cookie of the day or whatever, you know what I mean? That's what I mean by discoverable. Like that, those kinds of things are the things that I think would increase foot traffic after school and in the evenings. And especially actually that after school question, we have 3 schools within walking distance of Old Town. So we do want it to still be family friendly, kid safe, all of that stuff. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
I think so, yes. Thank you. Yep.
And I know this is a multi-year plan, so I'm not expecting it to be solved. We want to have a direction to go. So that's the other thing, is that we're hoping by publishing this, it will get some builders excited to help us. Like one of the things you're going to hear about is a potentially a new entryway off of
Columbia.
Columbia. Yeah. And so that it will, that would change what's there now, but only if it got bought to be redeveloped. And so part of it is just planning that for the future so we can get to work on it. And as we all know, the railroads are fun to deal with. And if we need crossings or different things, although Eric, Courtney Near on Mislin approached me unsolicited at the tree lighting and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing with this train track going through here?" And I said, "Well, we'd love to do tractor trailers." She goes, "Well, I know some people that might be able to help with that." So oh, okay, give me their info.
Wonderful. That's really good news.
Anyway, so we'll see if we get some movement on that. We've kind of gotten a stiff arm from them previously of getting some work done with the railroad, but apparently she's got some connections. So
Thanks. I may just build just a little bit, and please jump in here.
go ahead.
Counselor Giles, if I'm off track, I think one of the ways to describe, I think, the goals is like, and Counselor Giles mentioned it, but like right now, Old Town is actually fairly busy during the day because we have City Hall as an anchor. We have certain other kind of anchors, and so it's busy at certain times. What we really love is like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. to 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and like we just don't we have restaurants that will just open for dinner, for example, on the weekdays. We have some place kind of all scattered, so I guess we're looking for more consistency, across the board. And then if I'm hearing you right, like also more variety as well, consistency, variety, just nothing crazy. To answer your question, nothing crazy of like tourists flocking in every single Saturday. I don't think we're looking for that, but we're here. I think we see a lot of room and opportunity to just get to here, and I think that's what the goal of this is in terms of business health and business activity and that type of thing. And then the other really big component of this is kind of the world that you guys live in of urban design, architecture. How do we kind of from a policy and development regulation standpoint kind of make sure that as we try and hit and get to that point, we do it in a way that Sherwood, likes and respects and all that stuff in terms of development type and form and style and all that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
however we can get there, through this plan, I think that's the goal.
Yeah, 100%. Like the design elements, facade improvements, that has been something that, frankly, even slapping some faux brick on that particular building might make it look more old American, style, right? Or something. And so having some of those design standards in place so that we can be like, oh, this is an old town look, right? This is how we maintain it. And it might be preserving what we have, it might be doing some additions and stuff like that. But that's perfectly said, Eric.
Yeah, just turn up the dial.
A little.
The dial, a little.
Yeah. Because in reality, well, we've got like the morgue that's being used as a warehouse for boxes and stuff. They don't actually use it as a funeral home. And so we'd like to give them some incentive for moving on to their Newburgh location. We've got the old gas station that's there that we would love to provide them some incentive to develop it and to have it be something fun. And that how or the empty lot on the corner. We have a lot of places, in addition to the places the city owns, we've got a lot of places that could have really fun things go into them.
Great. And with that, I will share my screen here, kick off the presentation. Thank you, Counselor Giles. Really, it's great to have you here and kind of sharing the council perspective. Let's minimize all this stuff. Can you guys can see the PowerPoint online? Counselor Giles, can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you.
Sorry, it's mute.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. So I apologize. I'm going to kind of look this way as I don't have it in front of me here. But here, vision, what are we getting to? vibrant, safe, welcoming, of course, respects the community historic character due to the architectural design standards, thriving businesses, more housing, diverse housing, high quality public spaces, of course, cultivating the sense of community that Sherwood is known for. Pedestrian friendly streets, accessible connections by foot, bike, bus, and car. So I think that summarizes it pretty well as well. There's the vision in writing. I'm just gonna jump right in, and please do stop me anytime. Basically, what I'm gonna do is go through these big ideas. Then we'll get into the very specific actions. There's kind of three different buckets of actions and specific actions under all of those. So really, that's kind of the key, the heart of this action plan is those actions. And actually, just to back out a second, this is an action plan. So it's not, right now, it's not intended to be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. So it's not a formal comprehensive planning type document that's gonna be, part of the code, part of the comp plan. This is sort of a background. It's a policy document, but with a little bit less teeth than, say, our transportation system plan. So what it's going to do is set a list of priority actions that the city can take, led by staff mainly, with approval from city council to meet the goals of the plan. These might very well lead to comprehensive plan updates and development code updates. So like one of the actions is going to be consider development code updates to strengthen historic character in town, right? So this is an action that could potentially lead to a true sort of legal, policy update adopted by the city council. So this is kind of a framework for how to move forward, but it's not a comprehensive plan update itself. Yeah, these are actions. They're fairly high level at this point, and so really this is just setting the stage for all the next steps. So I think there's basically each one of these actions is going to require follow-up. So one of the things we want to get feedback from you on, and one of the things that will actually go to council and get developed and go to council between now and adoption is a clear list of priorities. And so if you guys think, hey, this is low-hanging fruit, love to hear that today. Or like, hey, not in love with this idea, it's good to hear that as well. And that'll help us prioritize. Staff is going to provide input on that as well. In terms of what we think is low-hanging fruit, cost, staff time, all that sort of stuff. How can we move this goal as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible? Like we'll be one that as well. Once this gets adopted in February, it's on the February council agenda. Once this gets adopted, then the planning team, economic development, engineers, et cetera, are going to.
Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to do a very quick check. The library's closing at 7. Do you want us to keep the outer door unlocked for people to come in? Is there gonna be another thing going on out here?
You can lock it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for checking.
I just will make sure.
Thank you. So we developed that list, and then again, we will take the steps. Of course, some of the stuff will come to you as well. Planning Commission, if it's code update, for example, like absolutely, that's gonna come to you. So really, this is the list of actions anywhere between 6 months to 5 years. I think is kind of what we're looking at. So that's kind of the sort of what this is as I pivot on this and move forward.
So just clarification, so I know having been involved with something that wasn't fully adopted as a comprehensive plan, it created challenges in future iterations of pointing to the documents. Will this be formalized enough that we could use it for funding mechanisms, for grants?
Yes. Yeah, good question. Yep. It's just.
But it's not going to change, or a developer. The developer going to be able to look at this and say, there's a line on this map that says you want this to be commercial and it's residential, so I'm gonna come in for a zone change based on the Old Town strategic plan.
This would not carry that weight. However, in this document, it will say the city should consider a zone change on XYZ property, and then we will bring that zone change to you and do it formally. I guess I think the way to look at this is it's so broad, it covers so much. in kind of a smallish plan document that we really we really don't, you know, we really don't have, it doesn't make sense, I guess, to kind of go through DLCD notice, all that sort of stuff. And frankly, this document's not really ready for it either. We need to do a transportation study, specific to that property. We need to do a feasibility, market analysis specific to that property. So this is kind of listing the actions, the framework for how we move forward, and then we need to do that more formal planning work.
And then, so I would say that if our community is looking at it, that we're doing this, we should have some sort of explanation on the front page that allows people looking at the document to understand the intent.
Yep.
Thank
you, Julie. That's good. And I mean, for the community members, also for developers and others who are really kind of savvy in this world to understand things about it. For example, policy.
Right, and as a commission or city, we don't wanna be beaten up by it later because we did something here. Understanding that it's a very high level plan and then holding our feet to a fire that wasn't ever intended to be set, so, thank you.
So then the levers for effectuating this plan then, since you can't hold developers to it, are incentives? Is that kind of the plan? I mean, a lot of this is city-owned property, so I assume we have lots of flexibility with that stuff as a city.
Yes.
But for the rest of it,
Yes.
like Councilor Giles was saying, offer incentives.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that this, this document, what I just mentioned is very planning focused, comp plan, the world that we all live in. But there are elements of this plan that will never result in a comp plan update, but they're still an important part of the plan. Say SDC reductions, that wouldn't come to you guys. That's a city council thing with developers and budget and finance director and things like that. So sure, like we would still have to do a follow-up step there, which is either an ordinance or a resolution reducing SDCs for certain businesses, but that wouldn't be a planning document, for example. So there's a lot of other elements that we're gonna pull on. We just have to take the path, whatever path in our local government world, that leads to the outcome. We need to follow up with that step. Sometimes it's gonna be planning, sometimes it's gonna be finance, sometimes it's gonna be whatever it might be.
No matter what this ends up saying, and no matter what incentives we have to offer, any business is gonna have to say to themselves, it's going to be worth it over the next however many years for me to be in Sherwood. Sure, it's gonna be a better place than some of the competing places.
Absolutely.
Is there a role in the city that is primarily sales? In other words, reaching out to developers on a regular basis to say, okay.
Yeah, this document, like we have been sharing this document already with potential investors, I just call them generally investors, developers, businesses. So, and truly, we have been sharing this. And it to your point, it demonstrates a clear vision for where we're going, and that's super important. And people might come and say it's a great town, but like, what's the plan, right? And there are certain investors that might hear the plan and say, that's not for me, right? Hopefully, and what we've heard is that this plan it's going in the right direction for investment. And of course, while maintaining sort of the values, that Sherwood has, small town, all that stuff. So yes, and then, we have an economic development manager at the city. To me, like, I don't know if he'd appreciate me saying this, but he's our salesperson. He's the salesperson, right? And his job is mainly business liaison, existing businesses, also business recruitment. A lot of the development stuff he and I do together. So I live more in the development world. He lives more in the business investment world. And so we go into those meetings together. Yeah. So we have a salesperson. He wouldn't like me saying that, I don't think, but.
Bruce would.
Bruce would have loved it.
The former one. Yep. Cool. Any other questions? All right. So the first big idea, if you will, is to extend the Pine Street curbless design. So this is a urban design related big idea. Sherwood really gets a lot of credit for our curbless street design. Everyone know what I'm talking about? So you go from the sidewalk into the street, there's no curb there. There's very clear demarcation between brick and pavers and all that sort of stuff. The idea is to extend that all the way up all the way up Pine Street to Third and Sherwood Boulevard, and just really kind of complete that vision. And that's for festivals. It's just for kind of a good looking streetscape, et cetera. Let's see, and I would kind of add on to this, really, it's full streetscape improvements all the way up Pine Street. Right now, there's power lines, there's other just utilities, there's other stuff in Pine Street, and we really need to clean it up and get a nice, clean streetscape all the way up and down Pine. That's what that idea is. What's that? And the alleys as well, and at the appropriate time, I'll have, through the chair, have Ann kind of weigh in some of her comments as well. Ann is with Mosaic Arts Loft, and I was talking with Ann about some alleys earlier today, so she might have some comments on that. The second is to pursue a new front door, and let me just say, like, this is a big deal. It's a bold vision. It's a big lift, 5 years maybe, probably longer than that. But the idea here was that the city owns all of these properties here, basically everything that's hatched right here, G, H1, H2, the city owns all of these right now. And we will be, long-term, be putting those up for either, for us to develop, to sell to a developer, combination, and the nature of those properties, plus the nature of this part of Old Town, the south side of the railroad tracks, it really changes if you have another access point here. So this is again getting to kind of urban design, a little bit of economic development as well. But basically the concern, if you will, is that if you're coming down here on Pine Street, which is the main thoroughfare, we know Cannery Square, we know the Art Center, very visible, very accessible off Pine Street. But as you work your way down Columbia, it becomes much more hidden, if you will, much harder to sort of access. And so if you think about it, like in your mind, these apartments here have a very different kind of feel and accessibility than this stuff here. Like it's really kind of out of the way. And so the nature of these properties just really changes. If we can get a new front door, if you will, coming from, this is how most people from Portland are coming in. They come off I-5, 12th and Sherwood Road, Oregon Street, and then they would come in here. So it would really just open up a whole new, really retail mixed use opportunity from that side of Main Street. So you'd have one opportunity here coming in, and the second one would be here. So that's sort of the vision. I think it's going to be an uphill battle. I don't mind saying that. You got the railroad in there, you got TBF&R existing. There's just a lot. It's an uphill battle. But we and the consultants didn't want to sell ourselves short. I really give the consultants a lot of credit for kind of being bold and sort of thinking really truly long term about what is the best outcome here in terms of access, transportation, urban design. And this was put on the plan. The third big idea is to initiate redevelopment of vacant city-owned sites. So everything there in yellow we own. We have heard from city council that they would like us to move first on what is site D. So this would be adjacent to the Art Center. There's a little gravel pad there. So they want staff to make that a priority in terms of getting a development on that property. We did hear from council that the priority is for it to be city owned for now. So it wouldn't be a pure developer offering. City would raise the money, develop property, and then likely do a lease or some type of retail tenant is likely what that would turn out to be. The other priority site is site A, which is the old schoolhouse site. It's about an acre in size right now. And just because of the visibility and location of that one as well, kind of make those two a priority. And then longer term, look at options for these properties here. And then there's one more in this little corner.
Regarding that larger section of property that is right there along Columbia Street, is there, assuming like that's a larger space that could be, say, for larger housing redevelopment, if something like that were to occur, is there anything in place to ensure that something along the lines of retail on the ground level and then housing on subsequent levels
Yeah.
is insured or?
Yeah, it's a great question. The nice thing about the city being the property owner is that we have an additional ability, additional layer of guaranteeing what we want. So we don't have to, basically, we would sell the property, and in that purchase and sale agreement, we would say, here's what needs to be delivered. And by the way, there's typically clawback provisions as well. So if you don't deliver, you can't deliver, it comes back to the city. So then that's different than just having the zoning authority, because as you know, the state laws keep, rolling back our authority. So having the zoning authority plus being the property owner, we're in the driver's seat. I think the question is, to the point I just made about access and visibility and all that stuff, will a developer, if we're not successful in getting this new front door, et cetera, will a developer actually bite on that? If we're gonna say has to be mixed use, will someone actually come to the table and say, yeah, that pencils for me? I think that's the question that we really need to answer, yeah.
So I remember about 3 months ago, we were talking about the yellow D property.
Yep.
And how that would affect the Saturday market. Today, that is Saturday market in the spring, summer, and fall.
Yep.
And so my memory is we said that it could in theory still accommodate or be beneficial to the Saturday market as opposed to taking that away.
Yep.
Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I think the vision is for that to be developed, the site D, like with a building, so that space is gonna be gone, right? But really, and this is what I appreciate about city council, the last meeting we had with city council, the direction we got was to look beyond just that site in terms of like, basically the direction we got was look at site D, of course, but also look how it interacts with the Arts Center. And to a certain extent, Cannery Square and the rest of it, and make sure that whatever we deliver on site D kind of is compatible with where this whole thing is going for that whole intersection. And so I think the short answer is yes. I mean, ultimately that's going to be developed, but whether it's Cannery Square plus more space, one of the things we're talking about is expanding Cannery Square, and like we own that property as well. And so I think, what I've heard, without speaking for council, is a strong desire to maintain the community event, the community gatherings, and the viability of those. So I think in the end, it's gonna be good to develop site D, but it's not gonna come, I guess, at the cost of Saturday market. Yeah, please.
Eric, I'll add a little bit to Commissioner Kai. That's a great point. We've even talked about that being pop-up space that would be kind of a more permanent, for smaller, farm to table booths or something that would be more permanent for Saturday market. Or we even, we haven't talked about this. I mean, again, I'm talking for myself and a few other counselors, but the walkway that's next to library and city hall there, that's where Saturday market used to be, and they put up booths along there. What if we were to extend that all the way through Old Town, right, and make it a linear Saturday market in addition to Cannery Square? Like, there's other things that can be done. We love having Saturday market there, but we want to design it, for flexibility and stuff like that, not just for and frankly, we want to look at what we need to do to the Arts Center so that we can potentially extend that a little bit or go out the back of it or something, so that we can have a little space for smaller conferences and things like that would bring people in during the day, during the evening. They would have catering opportunities because they'd have a full service kitchen and stuff like that. So we're looking at a lot of those things, but right now they're all just plans.
I think, the way I think of it is during the summer, the Saturday market is does bring a lot of people in, but the Saturday market it's like 20% as good as Beaverton's. And there's no way it's gonna be as good as Beaverton's, because we're just not that big. But if it was any smaller, then it would lose, I think, any attractiveness.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really important to make it only grow, because it does, I think, to have the potential to bring certainly people from Sherwood. But if it gets cool enough, then, you know, and it just depends on who is there.
Yeah.
Like I drive all the way to Beaverton sometimes, even though it's a hassle because it's extremely crowded on Saturday. But it's good enough and it's unique enough to where it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think that gets also to this, just this, the basic goal here, which is turning up that dial. I think that gets to address here. As soon as we get more housing here with more people, more businesses, et cetera, I think that naturally lends to a larger market as well. And I think that's kind of the direction we're going. It's just that, I call it the critical mass, right? We need that critical mass. And I think we're either just barely there or just barely getting there, and we just need to get fully there. So, yeah.
If I can add to that, with respect to the expansion of the farmers market or the Saturday market, we've been up to Olympia a few times, and they have a really nice like indoor outdoor building that's pretty much year round, with pop-ups, with some, you know, legacy clients that stay in there and things like that. The portion of the city-owned property that's right there adjacent to Cannery Square, the long linear parcel, has that been thought of as potentially to be used as a permanent pop-up location? But, you know, that goes to Commissioner Giles, kind of what's happening here this month, what's going to change here, you know, have some anchor stores or anchor, like a bakery or something like that, that stays in there, but then, you know, rotating things, and also farmers can actually bring in more stuff.
Yeah, and you're talking site G on this map here?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think certainly this plan doesn't preclude that. And I think basically what's gonna happen, Commissioner Barnes, is we're going to continue to talk with the city council and potentially planning commission as well on the details of these specific sites, including site G. And, you know, right now, we have kind of a basic understanding, like, we have heard that a hotel is desirable. That's one thing we've heard fairly clear. A boutique hotel would be desirable, somewhere around site G. But we still need to get into those details. And so, you know, potentially the direction we would get is absolutely to do something like that. And then we would do an RFP, either get a developer or have the city raise the money and actually develop that type of facility. But I think it's a great idea. It's kind of what Councilor Giles just mentioned for site D. I think the question is, and this, you know, we need a consultant for this. What can this, you know, what's the timing based on the market, right? We don't want to deliver something too big or too early. We need to deliver something that actually, you know, works for where we're at or where we're going. So that'd be, I guess, my only concern with something a little bit bigger. But I think the demand, the basic demand and desire for something like that is definitely here in the community. I think it's just a matter of landing it in the correct location, the correct size. And also, frankly, you know, the city is involved. Like, we have very real constraints as well in terms of expertise, you know, maintenance staff, all that sort of stuff. So we need to be mindful about what we take on and how it's operationalized as well.
I'll piggyback on a comment earlier about Cannery Square. I know I've mentioned this before, I think last time we talked about this as well, but I tend to agree with what's being said here about site G. That square is gonna be too small, in my opinion, for this size of development. So I was there for the tree lighting here tonight. It was awesome, always very fun. Brought all my kids, totally wall to wall packed people, right?
So I heard.
And this is which is awesome, but this is like was mentioned, a community gathering space. This is where people of Sherwood can come together and do things and celebrate stuff like that. It's where the parade terminated as well. There was a lot of people, and we're adding a whole lot more people with this plan. And it strikes me as there on the map here, there's this kind of this building right next to it. And I'm almost thinking, as long as it's, especially if it's city owned, maybe we just don't do that building and extend it. And I think even just that extra space right there, I guess it might be Cannery rectangle or something at that point. But that space right there would, I think, allow a little bit more breathing room and provide for a reasonably sized community space to be for these kinds of celebrations, in my opinion.
Adjacent to
We're looking at flexibility on all of this stuff, right? And so some of the examples on G have been to extend Cannery Square a little bit into G to give it the rectangle vibe, but maybe another level so that you could, you know what I mean? Like, again, we're in the early stages of all this. We know that we're growing as a city. Part of it is, well, what if, on D, that one of the ideas that's been spit around is a replica of the old train station, but again, with kind of a outdoor indoor vibe to it, so that you could walk through it, kind of a thing. And same thing with we've just got to we've got to get all these ideas, knowing that we are growing as a city, but we want this to still have its unique vibe. Because even though we were packed last or this year at that Cannery Square, last year it was raining and there was a third of the people there. So I don't want to build just for it's great weather, everybody's coming out, but I also want to be able to make it flexible so that we can, maybe if we had to, we would extend Cannery Square a little bit, and we'd maybe have a secondary stage at the Robin Hood Plaza, or something like that. Right? We've got to be smart with the size city we are.
The other thing that they mentioned throughout the process is events are great, Saturday market is great, but we need Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. so that businesses are viable all year round.
Mhm.
And 5 days or 7 days a week, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
focusing on Saturday market doesn't create all the critical mass that's needed to have a viable retail business in that area.
Yeah.
But I think having the discoverable businesses, and if you were to put those businesses in places in Old Town and have the Saturday market be more linear and walk through it,
Yeah.
well, that might because we always go to Saturday market and then we walk over to Cedar and Stone, right? If we had a few other stores to hit, that might produce what you're looking for there.
Right, absolutely.
Great discussion. And I think just to put a cap on sort of because there's a lot of conversation about city owned and the space and what to do and alternatives. Nothing is firm right now. And this is a goal that's probably 6 months, maybe three months to 18 months of planning over the next in order to get to that RFP. And I have a hunch that some of this is going to come to you guys as well. So I think just kind of know that it's exciting but we need to get into the details, and a big part of that's going to be market analysis as well, frankly, because we don't want to land something that doesn't work.
So on E, is there any thought that Cannery Square annex across the
Totally.
area?
Totally. I mean, truly.
Or
blank-
flex space?
Blank canvas. So I think with all these, and that's the beauty of the city owning, these properties. I mean, we own everything that we don't own F. That's the one you guys just approved, but we do own E, G, D, and A at the top there. But the main drag is G, and then all the way up to the field house, public works building. I want to move us along. The next big goal is to encourage redevelopment of vacant private sites. And there's a few key sites along Pine Street. Site B, of course, is vacant and for sale right now. Let's see, Site C is the current symposium parking lot. Of course, that's underdeveloped. Across the street is the former gas station, underdeveloped. We just approved this project here, F, in my opinion, great news that, we're getting some new private investment in Old Town. So we really want to work with developers to get development on their properties in a way that's, of course, compatible with Sherwood. What I'll tell you right now is there are, Site F, we had a developer come, walked away because it didn't pencil. This developer was able to make it work, not to get into the details, but I think it sat for long enough that then the owner realized, what an appropriate sale price might be. Site B, the former gas station, those properties are really hard to pencil. And we keep hearing that over and over again. They're 5,000 square feet. It's a typical single family lot. Construction costs are really high right now. There's power lines that they have out of the ground, like there's SDCs to pay. We've gotten a lot of people to poke at these, and it's pretty clear. And it's not Sherwood specific. This is big picture construction right now. Things really don't pencil right now. So we either need to wait or the city needs to do something different. And that's not for me to decide, that's up to city council to figure out, you know, how much, if we have levers to pull, what to pull. One of the things we're thinking at, just an example of how to address this, is we could do a local improvement district, and that would need buy-in either from the city council or from the city councils and the property owners. That's kind of like it's called like a self-help tax, where property owners are taxed a little bit incremental, all that gets pooled, and then either the city or another body does all of the undergrounding all at once. And so then you kind of, you know, you pool the money, do a capital project, which you couldn't do on your own, and then everything starts to move. So we're looking at options like that as well. The next big idea was to pursue a pedestrian rail crossing and trail. So the first one would be just a simple crossing, mainly near the Art Center. So this would be, I think, someone can correct me, Washington here, or is this Maine? Washington. I think this is Washington. Yep, it's Washington there. So this is Washington. We had a connection there at one point, went away when we did Pine Street. Art Center is right here, restaurants here. Right now, people need to walk around one way or the other. It would be great for over the overall kind of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Just the
Activity.
Yeah.
Planner did not come up with that word. I don't know why. The overall connectivity of Old Town. So we would love to punch that through. I think it would be great. Working with the rail is going to be difficult, but it would be great. One more thought. The other one is a rail to trail, which you guys are familiar with. And that's a little bit bigger picture than just Old Town, of course. So that would be, you know, more Sherwood down to Newburgh type of deal, but this would be an important area. I want to get to Joe's question first, and I'll get to you guys, Joe.
So I think like when we started, we were talking about getting help from Courtney Neron, perhaps with the Washington.
Yep.
It surprised me when I was reading the plan that it takes that. Is that purely because of the railroad?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, you know, common sense when you're reading, you just think, what's the big deal? But apparently it's a big deal.
The rail trail would actually likely be on, we would probably need some type of buy-in from the railroad, but it would actually be on private, it would be an easement or right-of-way acquisition on private property. So of course, if we cross the rail, we gotta get it, that's rail easement. The parallel path though would likely be typically how they work. Well, I backtrack. The rail could dedicate their land, right? But I think that's a pretty big uphill battle. The other option then is to do an adjacent parallel path. That would require, you know, us acquiring or a nonprofit or something acquiring from many, many owners as you go, which is difficult as well. So I think those would be the two options. Both difficult.
If it could occur, you know, I think like a big draw, not just to Sherwood, but like just the whole like Sherwood starting as like either, you know, a starting point for the path, but partnering, connecting to neighboring city, you know, Newburgh, McMinnville, being able to incorporate that and just have that as a draw to our Old Town, I think, you know, just makes that much bigger.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, what I think about is Banks Vernona Trail. You guys have ever done that? Great trail. You know, something like that, you know, could, it's probably along the lines of not getting completely inundated, you know, like to our concern, I guess, but really kind of bringing people, then they go out to lunch afterwards, things like that. So, yep. Cool. All right, and the last one is to extend what we're calling the promenade. So just this alley, if you will, right here is the start of the promenade. So starting at the roundabout here, come all the way down, and the vision would be to continue that all the way down to Veterans Park. There are some challenges. There's trash enclosures in there. There's sort of some competing interests for space in these alleyways. Typically, they're used for trash enclosures and, you know, maybe some rear loaded access, things like that. So we would need to address those conflicts for space. But that would be an idea. And maybe this is a good time, and through the chair, maybe it's a great time to just hear really quickly from Ann. And this is Ann Brucker. Ann is the owner of Mosaic Arts Loft. who's just opened up a really nice studio. They do art classes here. We were talking earlier about alleyways, and so I invited Ann to actually give formal testimony on in January, but I guess it'd be great if you see now. Happy to kind of hear you out.
Sure, I wasn't prepared with any. But I'm Ann Brucker and I started Mosaic Arts Up in 2006 when we developed the land on Park Road Street. With the little yellow bungalow that's now along the alleyway and added the cabin building. And so that was my vision in 2006 for an arts center in addition to an art studio. So a year and a half we've been in that building, so I guess it's maybe 2.5 years that we purchased the property adjacent to Symposium that have been boarded up for the 27 years we've been here, and turn that into for a larger art studio and teaching area. So we serve right now we're about 55 families, last year up to 70 in the winter, so it kind of fluctuates a little bit. We serve every week. That come into Old Town, they love Symposium, they love to go to Clancy's, so it's really bringing a lot of business in. Sorry, that was supposed to be done about Alan.
Yeah, sure.
I can get on lots of tangents, so yeah, so with developing that property, it's been, I was tucked in a corner for 18 years and being now in the center of everything and didn't realize how much a change that would be. But it's been so fun just to be a part of like the city and people coming in and really, I've always appreciated Sherwood, now even more, but all those festivals because they're right outside my door. And so the community has been, they just tell us, they thank us every time there's a festival, we're getting thanked for being there. So now we're developing the back. So we had phase 1 is 2,500 square feet in the front of the building that we fixed up. We have 2 more phases. Phase 2 is the back, 1,600 square feet. Our plan is to be done by January to lease that out. And then phase 3 will be dealing with that tin wall that everybody loves. That runs the length of Symposium's parking lot. We'll be dealing with that in the front facade. So with phase 2, I mentioned the chamber breakfast this morning, just got in a quick conversation about we're creating, I don't know what y'all know, but so we're creating the back to be a storefront. So even though the back of our building faces the alley, it is being designed as a storefront. So we have a 12-foot by 6-foot inset. There'll be some cafe tables, 2 large windows, and then the transoms across the top and around the door. So lots of light coming in, and you know, we're trying to get that finished by January so we can lease out. So part of when we were at the meetings for the Old Town Strategic Plan, I was at the first 2 meetings of that, and we had brought up the suggestion of could we have the alleyways paved so that it's an easier access off the sidewalk to the back of the building. We met with the owner, you know, who it is, but the person owns the back and the 2 lots just right behind us. We met him over the summer, and he had shared how his plan is to develop those properties with retail below and residential above his plan. So we shared what we're doing. He was like, oh, he was getting excited, like, oh, okay, so if something happened, we didn't know the final decision, but if something did get done with the alleyways, we'd have our retail frontage on the alleyway, that he could also have 1 more side for retail frontage. So, so my request was, it'd be really very advantageous for us. Like I said, we're bringing a lot of people to Old Town. Our plan is that we'll have more people coming to Old Town as we lease out the back. If there was a way to more easily access the back of the building with a small asphalt pathway that could go from Pine Street up to the door, the new frontage door in the back of our building. So I don't know how much I'm supposed to share, but that was just what I was suggest.
Thank you. I just wanted
Yes.
to give you the opportunity. And I think there are some, basically, you know, what I'm hearing is pay attention to the alleys. And I think alleys are certainly an opportunity in Old Town. The promenade here is an alley, right? That's a very clear alley. We turned this was, you know, an alley more or less as well, and now it's a beautiful kind of walking space, highly used trail, all that sort of stuff. So the plan does get to this a little bit. There's one action or as kind of a sub-action, if you will, about, and there's a memo in here about trash enclosures. And basically, right now, if you were to walk all the way down where this promenade is, eventually you're gonna hit just a whole bunch of trash cans, basically. And so we need to address that. And so there are some actions in here that would kind of lend itself to then achieving that goal. And I want to be careful, you know, we have one business owner in front of us now, which is wonderful, and want to work with all of them, but we really need to think, you know, to me, I want to think a little bit bigger picture of like, what's the overall plan, and not necessarily piecemeal it, but make sure that we have a cohesive strategy for the alleys. So, you know, the things that I think about, the two main are again, trash cans, because that's mainly what the alleys are used for now. There is some rear loaded access and things like that. And then just from a really basic development standpoint, you know, what we probably need to do some type of audit, inventory, study, which would be follow-up to look at like how are the alleys used now in terms of utilities, access, things like that. And if we do start a sort of a paving program, make sure that we don't hamstring ourselves or really shoot ourselves in the foot for future. So if we pave, if we do really nice, you know, base rock, everything's gonna be expensive, base rock, asphalt, all that stuff. Developer comes in and wants to develop and they gotta put their utilities under something that we just paved. So we need to think about some basic logistics like that as well. But I just wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to weigh in. It's great to have the businesses here. Sure.
One more idea
Sure.
that we're employing is because we're envisioning storefront on the back. We've actually added a storage room for our garbage cans, so those will be not on the alley.
Yep.
But actually inside our building.
Yep.
So that way-
And that could be, it's a great segment to maybe a code update where, you know, I don't know, it'd be up to you guys in city council, but maybe it's a code update to say, hey, new development have to accommodate, you know, your trash enclosures on sites, where right now everything's getting pushed into the alleyway. It's right of way, actually. So, you know, is that really what the city wants, or do we want new development to sort of handle their own waste on site somewhere, and that would then free up the alleys? So anyways, I think just kind of keep that in mind, and you know, this thing is not finalized yet, so to the extent we need to add some language, clarify something, add a new action, I wanted to make sure we have things as early as possible. All right. Only 1 hour in. I'm gonna just keep going here. So this is kind of a nice visual of the vision. And I will say that this is probably like the most intense that the outcome is likely to be in terms of, you know, development intensity. You know, we talked about Cannery Square being extended. I think it's very possible that it could be extended, but we're showing a building there right now. So I just want to kind of put that out there, that this is a fairly robust kind of, you know, corridor. These two corridors are fairly robust at what we're assuming here. I don't know that it's actually going to play out this way. But you can see, you know, buildings along the key city-owned properties and the key private properties. This is the Symposium building here, the gas station here, Site D, you know, everything's kind of filled out, and then you can see the new entryway here. And I think this is a great visual of sort of how this new front door could really, you know, transform this area. I think it's a great visual of sort of, you know, how this could actually turn out. So let's see. I'm not going to go over all of that. We've showed these to you before, but just to give you some visuals, just to run through it really quick. So this would be one city-owned property, one private property. The only thing I'll say here is that the plan and the consensus we've gotten from city council is pretty firm on having a public space somewhere on this property. We really wanted to have one at Sherwood Boulevard and Third. We wanted to have one at Pine Street and First, which is Robin Hood Plaza, which we have now, and then of course the third one being Cannery Square. So kind of a you know, a row of open spaces as you come down, which I think is a really strong vision. Site D, Site E, and Site F. This is from what we've been hearing, single story is likely, maybe 2 stories, you know, nothing taller than that. You all approved a residential development here, of course. Site E, I think a lot of opportunity. Gene mentioned potentially having this be Cannery Square extension, so there's some flexibility there. This is the boutique hotel, I guess, right on Cannery Square. I think that could very well be pushed back. What I really like, and you know, whether it's here or pushed back, retail storefront facing the plaza, ice cream shop, coffee shop, you know, something like that. And then the last one, really the biggest transformation is where we have the public works site. So this is city owned, all of this is the city owned property, city public works facility, city owned community garden. All of that would be potentially transformed as well. And so you can kind of see the vision there as well.
Is there an alternative to the Columbia Street? I mean, we know it's a heavy lift to go roundabout 2 crossings over the railroad tracks. If that doesn't happen, is there an alternative that would have Columbia Street going back into like Willamette or something like that, so that instead of having big roundabout wiping out, you know, the fire station, everything like that, that it stays tight onto the property and has a single crossing or something like that? I'm
Yeah,
just wondering, is there a
Yeah.
alternative that, cause I don't wanna get so tunnel vision on a giant transformation that we miss the opportunity to do an incremental change.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good question. The short answer is yes. In the planning document, there's 3 different alternatives shown in there.
Right.
And I would add, like, I talked with the civil engineers today, he marked up something, he gave me 3 more options. So, yes, and I think, yeah, you know, the trade-off to me is the difficulty in getting this done. But really then nailing the vision of new retail commercial corridor. As soon as we start to say, come down Lincoln, for example, we come down Lincoln and then come back over, which is probably much more viable, or, you know, sooner,
Yeah.
faster, cheaper, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Then you lose a bit of this kind of slam dunk, you know, entryway. And so that's the trade-off. But absolutely, that's gonna be on the table as well. And we are talking with the fire department right now about options.
Right. Lincoln, sorry, yeah, that would be, you know, the easy button to at least progress.
Yep.
The next step.
Yep.
That turn the dial up.
Yep.
Eric, on that slide, you know, looking at this redevelopment, I think the kind of open area, just north of the new area, what's the potential oh, sorry, on the other side of Oregon Street? So
Where the church is.
where the church is, yeah, is there potential for there? Cause I know that that's a lot of open land, like, is there any thought on what that,
You know, I don't know their plans. It's owned by, so there's 2 owners. There's one owner here, small white church. There's one owner, and then sort of the rest, this building here and the rest of it as it goes back is St. Francis.
okay,
So, you know, I don't know the plans. I think it's all zoned multifamily right now. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it's zoned. It's either zoned for commercial or multifamily. And really it would just be, I mean, if it's up to them, if they want to hold it, what they want to do. We've talked about options there. Maybe the fire department can go there. You know, obviously they need to buy it, but I think it's so close and so open, flat, all that stuff that I think we're absolutely thinking about the opportunity there. So, but at the end of the day, it's gonna come up to a willing seller.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
or developer, yeah. All right, and this really gets to, now we're getting into the actual actions, so, you know, the rest of the conversation will really be about the actions. Let's just jump right in and I'll say, yeah, I have, so generally speaking, we have 3 categories: business health and growth, and then there's 6 actions. Sense of arrival, 4 actions, and infrastructure and development, 3 actions. So we're just gonna go through each one and chat through. And I don't need you guys to necessarily say anything, you know, big on these. Like, if you're just kind of in general agreement, great, and we can just be like, yep, great. Something really sticks out as a good idea, bad idea, you know, we're happy to take that input as well, though. So,
Is there any correlation between the numbering and the priorities? Okay.
There's 2 number 1s and a 3, 4.
Thank you, Gene. These typo corrections, we're happy to take that as well.
Okay,
That's supposed to say anything, Gene, fun.
oh,
It's
Wow,
presentation
Gene.
time.
Wow.
Everything's
I thought there
number
was
one.
2 number ones and like the other things were like, whatever.
We're not that intentional. Come on.
Like
All right,
there's
so
wide.
sense of arrival, develop a wayfinding and signage plan. So this is getting to Counselor Giles' comments that we're kind of off the beat track, right? We're not right along the highway. We have a little bit of signage that says Old Town here. But a lot of the comments we get are, I had no clue that Old Town was here, and what a gem. So developing a wayfinding signage plan, be 12th and Sherwood Road, Highway 99, maybe Sunset, others. And I'd say also within Old Town as well, you know, maybe some wayfinding for, here's Mosaic Arts, like here's the Arts Walk, you know, that type of thing as well. Number 2, improve access and streetscapes. So that kind of gets to those basic improvements that we already talked about, Columbia, rail crossing, the curbless streetscape. Number 3 is complete neighborhood connections. That really gets to more of not really the invite people from outside Sherwood here, but I was at the Halloween festival. No, there was a Old Town Halloween in the main, thanks, put on by Main Street. Commissioner Kai showed up, you know, came from his neighborhood into Old Town, in full costume.
Didn't recognize.
I still don't know where you were, but I came in full costume.
Garrett from the Minecraft movie.
So, you know, the making those connections into the neighborhoods that exist right now, trails, bike lanes, that type of thing. And then promote walk, bike and roll loops. And this would be more of a programming type of thing, not infrastructure specifically, but programming. So, you know, how do we work with whatever organization to help kind of get people moving around? So thoughts, comments, feedbacks?
Real quick question on the true number 1 there. Is there any sentiment for or against emphasizing Sherwood's identity with Sherwood Forest on the signage? Or
That's a loaded question.
is it?
Yeah, a little bit,
So
you
there's-
know.
So
Go.
one of the conversations, so we have a logo. But one of the things that came up recently was because of the pedestrian bridge, incorporating the pedestrian bridge into our existing logo and starting to brand with the existing 12th and Wildlife Refuge look to our logo and adding the bridge to it. I mean, that's what I've heard, the focus.
I mean, I think it is common sense to make Old Town more discoverable. And there are a variety of ways you can do it. So to me, that's the most important thing. I've always liked the affiliation we have with Sherwood Forest and the whole story, but I don't know if other people really share that.
The reason I say it's a loaded question, I'm joking, obviously, but Counselor Giles would weigh in here if he took off, I'm sure, but one of the broader city council goals that they're talking about is branding, just very generally as a city. And I think so that question and project is much deeper than even you're talking about of like, what do we put on the signs? But I think there has been, you can see it in the architecture here. And frankly, that's part of the reason why we're embarking on this plan right now and why we might do a code update, but you can see the different movements, if you will, over the last few decades of course, early 1900s at Lady Town, it was true brick, right? Like true historic buildings now. In the 90s, there were a few different buildings that did lean into the English Tudor, Robin Hood type style. And then we have kind of some newer-ish buildings. The most recent one didn't get a lot of support, but there are some sort of newer modern buildings as well. And I think that's, I've heard both. Frankly, I've heard we should absolutely lean into Robin Hood English Tudor, and that gets it almost into like a Leavenworth type deal, right? And
I was only talking about signs, but.
thank you for clarifying. But then I would say it gets back to this city branding more generally. The school district Bowman, right? They've kind of leaned into it, but I think before we did that, the city council would need to answer, how do we want to identify ourselves? Right now, the logo is the home of the Tualatin National Wildlife Refuge. So far, that's what we've gone into. Whether that's right, wrong, whatever, that's our logo. And so I think it's a little bit bigger question.
I don't think most people that would be the first thing they would think of. When I talk to people, I live in Sherwood, yeah, like the forest. Oh, yeah, you can have Robin Hood Festival, I mean, yeah, that's us.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think if keep Sherwood, it seems like that is at least a heritage component. I mean,
I've had
it would be a
people from
distinct
England-
change to go to the bridge and the wildlife refuge as branding.
Right, right, but the bridge is gonna be, I mean, the pedestrian bridge is now gonna be part of it. They have, so what they've talked about is there's some big concrete forms that they used when they made the ends of the bridge, that if they could place those strategically around town, then that would create this continuity of theme. Not that I don't know if I agree, I
Yeah.
have no design taste whatsoever, so don't ask me, I'm just
Not a
saying.
marketing guy either.
Yeah.
I just know most marketing people like to retain at least some of the heritage of what you are, even if you're advancing forward typically.
Yes.
It's an element of it.
And, just to be kind of clear on where I guess the planning documents are right now, in terms of urban, in terms of architecture, essentially, the code right now for Old Town is a early American code as opposed to an English Tudor code. That's where the code is right now. And the code and this plan kind of doubles down on that. So basically what's in this plan, just to be clear, what's in this plan is late 1800, early 1900 or a historic architectural style. It really is not, it really doesn't lean into Robin Hood English Tudor. With that said, I think there's plenty of space for programming, Robin Hood Festival, businesses, whatever else to lean into that. And there could be a point in time where we get the clear direction, go all in Robin Hood. And then we are, right, but that needs to come from the city council.
And then are we gonna thematically keep with, light poles, streetscape, furniture, et cetera?
Yeah, yes.
That was quite controversial when Blue came in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I cannot speak to it.
Eric, so bring up a place like Leavenworth. How does a city theme itself so consistently, and like what's required in that process? Is it something that the city at some point like, okay, this is what we're gonna do and all property owners need to conform to this now? Like,
So,
okay,
I like.
The river is similar.
what?
Draconian code, I mean,
Right.
it's this way or there's no way, sisters can a beach.
Yeah,
Are all cities that are extremely rigid in what they
Yeah.
do.
yeah,
And don't they go through like a design review? I mean, not just a planning commission, but they have an architectural design review committee that approves every
Yeah.
exterior.
Sandy's starting to do that too.
okay. Cause, I think we're all familiar with a process where someone comes in, wants to create or build something, and then there's something that they have to follow or adhere to. I think it's a whole nother process to make properties or owners who aren't going through, trying to revitalize a property, you now need to follow suit and
And with the new Oregon code, how do you force design standards?
yeah.
Someone that don't have to follow it.
Fascinating how, because Washington is kind of following Oregon. California has always been first on this sort of interesting deregulation of development, and Oregon has followed. And I hear that Washington is next. Washington just did clear objective standards. Oregon was a few years ago. So I wonder now, is design review also going away in Washington? It very well might. And that's a fascinating question to me, of how those jurisdictions that are so branded, and in many ways, like, how do they deal with that? If, for example, if now someone could go put in a modern thing, I'm not sure how they're gonna deal with it. It's a good question.
I have something to add to that. I was part of down in Southern California Design Review Board. That was one of my roles down there. And so having an aesthetic kind of framework in the municipal code as something that we could rely on was definitely helpful. And I think it did provide a sense of context and historical character and maintaining and not necessarily conforming someone or some project to it, but it certainly gave the city some clarity and also some, not anything that would be like enforceable per se, but it was definitely, in my opinion, something that drove the conversation in the direction that the city wanted to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's gonna be the new approach with all this deregulation is like a little bit of peer pressure, frankly, of like, here's what, in many ways, that's what this apartment complex that you guys approved, like, there wasn't a whole lot that we could stand on, but it was a lot of conversations, a lot of setting expectations, even outside of code, and that's kind of how we got to that design. So it's harder because we can't just drop the code on it, but
It's okay, Eric, before you leave this page, the only comment I have is on the develop the wayfinding signage plan, is there a way to tie that into the medallions?
I'm sorry, which one?
Develop the wayfinding and signage plan, tie that into the Sherwood medallions.
Medallions in the pedestrian bridge?
Yeah, so we have a consistent look and feel.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I'm not all that familiar with medallions. I think we're getting permanent medallions in sometime in the future. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, I appreciate you thinking really big picture, right? Like not just, because ultimately the vision for Sherwood, we want to lean into bike, all that stuff. And so like, yeah, can we have a consistent wayfinding from the new pedestrian bridge all the way into Old Town?
Well, I'm thinking the medallion theme would be our wayfinders.
Oh, I got you. Potentially, yeah. And
So
so
it's an idea.
just to be clear, like, well, maybe hire a consultant to sort of develop the template, if you will, if we kind of plug it there.
There's more than blue signs on the freeway, right?
I think so. We gotta get past ODOT. So on Highway 99, it might be blue signs, but as you kind of get into the Sherman streets, get a little different.
So are we making edits to this, or are we gonna do, how will input be?
I think we're really just looking for prioritization, really, unless something's glaring. But yeah, go ahead. Say whatever you like, Gene.
Well, like Commissioner Weidl's idea about adding the medallion scene, is that part of
I
what
wouldn't
we're,
get into that.
that's not what we're not suggesting edits to this. Per se, but just saying if that's the number one, then when it comes to plan, then we would
Yep.
incorporate the details that
Yep.
we're throwing out. Okay,
Exactly.
so we can move this.
Yeah, and I think maybe the last thing I'll say on feedback tonight, is there anything missing? Like, is there anything glaringly missing? I don't think it takes a whole lot to add something in here. And, maybe we do it, maybe we don't in the next 5 years. But if there's something that you're like, this is a great idea, it should be on here, like happy to take that feedback as well.
Streetscape improvements, I think, should include
Mhm.
the furniture, the light poles. I mean, if we're gonna be consistent in Old Town and go curveless. And if we're all bought in on blue, then let's go all in on blue so everybody knows you're in Old Town.
Are we all in on blue?
I don't know if we are, but it could be part of the streetscape. So streetscape's not just curbless, it's the furniture and the accoutrements that go along with it.
Yes,
That's
and we do have an Old Town streetscape plan, which we do abide to, and I'll say. It's more of the style. We can paint them blue, we can paint them black in the future, but the benches, the trash cans, all that would be a certain design, basically, and then we can paint.
But if they need to be colored and someone puts one in, let's not do green and blue and orange and black. Commissioner Barnes, I think, had a comment
Yeah,
also.
Commissioner Barnes?
That's funny. I did a streetscape program for another city up in the Bay Area or down in the Bay Area, and bollards and street lights and all this and that. And so yes, I mean having a set palette that they can choose from, limiting it, that's gonna be one thing. Something else that I wanted to bring up that I thought might have been not actually missed, but climate change and whatnot as we try to develop our downtown, our old town, we have tons of water coming in right now with, an atmospheric river. And then when we get into the summer and the dry months, we're watering those streetscape plants, right? We got to continually dump water in there. Maybe as we do an underground of utilities, as we get redevelopment, some type of cistern or bioswales or something like that that we can have as a landscape streetscape feature. Something that we can say, all right, well, we're not only are we've got impervious pavers over here that are retaining water that we can use, for in the future, or we're recycling this type of thing more in line with our Tree City approach, and really trying to kind of reduce the heat island effect by um, keeping our trees and keeping our landscaping available. So that's something I wanted to see, in addition to, you know, that promoting, like, the way I broke it down is the short term, midterm, long term priorities. So like 1 year to 3 years, 3 years to 5 years, and then 5 years plus.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that is something that I think we can look at first as part of like long-term development is, like, hey, how can we really get new developers to, sorry. Uh, and so, yeah, I'm on the clock. The understanding financial responsibility, if a new development is coming in, what is their fair share, if that's the case, of, undergrounding new utilities, but also including rainwater catchment and beautification for the city, and ensuring that that information is provided in this strategic plan.
Yeah, I think that's great, Commissioner Barnes, and I think that's like, some of it's gonna come down to code and getting that with new development. Other stuff could be more capital led, and I'm thinking the promenade, and like the High Line, for example. I know we're not New York City, but great job, getting vegetation in that corridor. So
Yeah.
maybe with the promenade, there's opportunities for swales and things like that, because if it's not all paved right now, we will need to pave it and then manage that water, so.
So and I'm sorry, I'm kind of pirating right here, but
Go ahead.
and I did send this to you, Peter. So Eric, I do have some of the information that I can just gloss over here, but something that I wanted to, like the trash management program, there are ways in which to, screen those things, make sure that the trash cans aren't just like littered about. And I think having an aesthetic that again ties into a Sherwood, this is what, we have these three options for alleyway improvements, for trash cans, and turn it into more of a natural flow. Like they walk through, yep, this is where the trash cans are, but it doesn't look like it's just a pile of trash cans, right? Or something like that. And then with respect to parking, we have this new development that's going in there. We've got a new building and whatnot. And what I've seen in other cities and counties is you have to be able to accommodate that parking on site. So they build below, and I'm not sure what our soils are and geotech and whatnot, but have we ever considered, like I saw in the slides, a parking structure potentially down by, I don't know if it was D or wherever it was, but an underground parking facility associated with new development.
Yeah, I think we're likely looking more at probably an above ground public facility is probably what that turns out to be. These sites are, since they're mostly the remaining sites, 5,000 to 10,000 square feet, they just don't lend themselves to an underground. You basically need to have like 10 stories to make that pencil. So I think we're looking at more of a publicly funded shared parking structure somewhere in a strategic location is probably what the plan is getting to. You need a pretty big site, because even in Portland, like you get them on the west side because they're, a 25-story building. But on the east side, for example, there's really nothing underground. That's, and Art, please jump in here. I'm speaking for maybe for the city of Portland here, but on the east side, when you can't go above X number of stories, they really don't see anything below ground. So I don't think the finances are there for that.
Yeah, I figured as much. I was just trying to think outside the box.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And just to close, put a cap on that, one of the items here, somewhere in here, is to do a parking study. And so, we do get complaints from businesses. People are parking outside my business for 2 weeks, make a move, right? So part of this is, as we grow, making sure that we're getting ahead of that parking conversation and planning appropriately for parking, including potentially a structure.
So to wrap this up, do you need us to rank any of these or you've
Not
got
if
a
you don't
plan
want
to?
to. Not if you don't want to.
Okay,
I mean,
we
if
can-
any, it sounds like wayfinding is supported. Anything else that really jumps out as a priority?
Oh.
Yeah.
Go on to that.
Great. All right. Business health and growth. Old Town branding is the first one. Partner and support Old Town advertising and branding initiatives. This could be in partnership with Main Street. It could be in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. Like, you know, we may not do branding on our own. We want to ensure the businesses are on board. Expanding events and programming, getting to your point, Commissioner Tillotson, about Saturday market expansion, like the plan absolutely calls for, what I'd say, the small events and the big events, our big key marquee events, plus all the small stuff we do, lean into all of those and have the city support those is really what this is saying. We support them already, support them even more in various ways. Attract targeted businesses, promote and recruit new businesses. There's a lot of detail in there, but it's kind of gets what Councilor Giles mentioned. Can we develop fast track permitting? So just to give you an idea of what this would be, we know the target businesses. It's going to be restaurants, arts, other things that we don't have right now that bring people in, that sort of contribute to that sense of place, that 18-hour downtown. It could be maybe even non-financial incentive. Hugo, Art, myself, fast tracking. If you are this business, you will get fast track service, right? And to really incentivize them getting through the permit system. On the far end of that, but it would be a financial incentive. That's going to come down to budget, city council, finding the money, all that sort of stuff. But the key is to really focus and prioritize, frankly, certain businesses over certain industries over others. Incentivize investment and business growth. Fairly similar to what I just mentioned. So really, I just kind of covered both of those. Is target the businesses, but then incentivize them in certain ways. Is 3 and 4. Number 5, and this is where your world comes in, actually, initiate regulatory modifications. So that would basically means develop code, maybe transportation system plan, et cetera. Ensure feasible, compatible quality development. It's not going to be easy, as you all know, with the rollback of our ability to enforce our code. But it gets to the other conversation. Can we incentivize? Can we put a little just peer pressure on them, you know, and try and get the outcomes we're looking for and be able to point to the code, even if they can get exceptions to it as the standard. And then the last one, parking strategy, as I mentioned. So initiate a parking study and management plan.
That was why I asked the priority question, because I'd be worried if that was the 6th priority on that.
Thank you. Sounds like it's higher priority on your list.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think parking is with this much development in this small of an area, and where we already have non-parking issues, I think it's a big priority.
And we need to be able to have that to target businesses and incentivize them to come.
Does the state of Oregon not have the ability to thwart a, you know, let's just assume the general structure parking that you were talking about a little bit ago, Eric. Could the state of Oregon thwart that? Okay.
They're mainly what they're gonna get into is when a developer comes and wants to build something for housing mainly. There's limited things that we can do around parking,
Yeah.
but it would not limit our ability to say, we're doing a study, you know, big picture study. B, we're putting a parking structure there.
Well, we can build our own parking, but we can't ask someone who's putting in
Gotcha.
20 units to put in any parking
Yeah.
if they're within a quarter
More
mile.
to the reason to do that, actually.
Right.
Absolutely. Cool. Other thoughts on these?
I would think the feasible, compatible, and quality about the regulations and the code, it's probably gonna be like a short-term, mid-term, long-term, easy,
Sure.
medium, hard, and then some of it after we see how some of the code, but it would be nice to see how hard some of them are gonna be. And I would like to see a code enhancement that says easy is the thing we're looking for. If you come in with this exact development criteria and your building looks just like this, staff level decision in Old Town.
Yeah.
If it's not exactly this, then you go through the regular process. Then we can get rid of barriers to development by making the right thing the easy thing.
Yep.
But I don't know what that, what's the right thing? Obviously, it's not tutor, but.
Not right
English
now.
tutor.
What's the next? Any other thoughts?
Big lift.
I'm gonna put my timer down for 5 minutes before my little one goes to a pumpkin. So
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner Barnes. All right, and the last one, so I think this is the last slide, by the way,
Okay.
so the last one is infrastructure and development. And the three are identify priority redevelopment sites. We've kind of done that already. City Council has already said, D and A, so we've kind of got that already. Prepare and initiate developer offering. So this would be site G would be a good example, site A would be a good example. And really, we need to understand the vision a little bit more, to the point I was just making about, we need to do a little bit more planning with you guys potentially, and then do that developer offering. But we would do a developer offering for the city-owned properties. And then the third one, develop an infrastructure and funding plan, initiate a financing strategy, and consider adoption of a local improvement district. And this gets to fairly big picture infrastructure planning. So the main issue that we know we have is overhead power lines. We have to address those if we're going to get a lot of new development, especially on the smaller properties. And probably a little bit boring for this group, and it's in the plan, there's an infrastructure memo, we gotta pay attention to things like stormwater. Do we have capacity, to Commissioner Barnes' point as well, how are we managing there's stormwater, regional stormwater swales that all this water's going to, we gotta make sure those are have capacity, things like that. So we need to just take a closer look at that, and if there's things low hanging fruit the city can do to sort of make development easier, then we should be doing those things as well.
Yeah, that's on Commissioner Barnes' comments is we've got, 90% of these lots are permeable surfaces right now. And they're gonna be paid, so how do we manage that? So, all right.
And transportation, I put streetscape, sidewalks, all that's infrastructure as well. Any burning thoughts on these ones?
Goes back to make the right thing the easy thing. If they can come in and develop with some of the things that we want, fast track through engineering, staff level decision, go to grading without having to the whatever monkey gyrations you have to go through.
Yep.
For everything else.
Yep. Okay, great. I think that's it. So just to recap, we will bring this to you, it looks like for the second Tuesday in January, so that'll be a public hearing. We'll accept public testimony, and then you guys will give a recommendation. So to the extent that we're gonna make, we'll make the changes based on your feedback. We'll kind of clean up all the typos and everything else. I need to get through this in detail, clean all that stuff up, and then we'll bring a really clean version to you guys. You guys would recommend to council would adopt in February.
So what specific did you see besides Gene's obvious number one?
Oh, I gotta do a full look. I've kind of been tracking this over.
No, not the change, but from tonight's conversation, what did you take from us that's gonna implement a change from the draft that we saw? That anybody else thinks that we need to make sure we incorporate? I just wanna make sure we capture it.
Yep.
So that we have it at the hearing, so we're not recrafting it.
Explanation of like how this document's been. That was one from the beginning. Let's see, I heard, so just, I guess, backing out a second, what's not in this document right now is actually like a table likely that has timelines on it and priorities. And so I think that this conversation, I'm gonna go back, talk to the consultant and say, highlight parking as an early priority, highlight wayfinding as an early priority. So that's gonna be put into a table and you guys can review that. So
Okay.
that's kind of the big takeaway.
Okay.
Plus the early one that I mentioned and in the right location, figure out how to incorporate the alley conversation as well.
Okay, I just wanted to. There's a lot of discussion, I just wanted to make sure we were capturing.
How it's coming back to you guys.
Yeah, cool. And so
Okay.
those, because there were two blank sections, the performance. The priority actions and timeline, so
Yep,
that's what we
exactly.
were talking
Yep.
about.
This is gonna inform those.
And then performance indicators, have we been given, or has the consultant mentioned, or are you looking for feedback of how we know we're successful? Or
If you guys have that feedback now, that's great. I'm not quite sure what they're thinking of. It's probably going to be things like how many new businesses are opened, how much, new sidewalk is added. I would assume those would be the nature of the performance indicators.
One primary thought I have, Eric, which doesn't really add to what we would be looking at in January, but our downtown, or our old town, is really something that a lot of cities don't have, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I also love how its size, it cannot get too big.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful with what we do.
Yep.
But it's very walkable.
Yep.
But I would also say now it's always been very quirky as well, right? There are a lot of properties as you walk around the alleys. Some are kind of nasty. And some are, in some parts of the old town are really, really nice. Yeah, and if we were to do the things,
Not its words here.
if we were to do the things that,
tell us maybe,
like the curbless, all the way up to site A. Getting rid of the overhead lines, making the alleys more
Yeah.
walkable.
Yeah.
Making the street crossing at Washington. We do all those things are gonna be inflection points where. Developers and a lot of just regular people are gonna say, it is so nice. This is so nice, I wanna be here. Like not live here, but I wanna come here, or I wanna have my business here.
Sure.
So I think this actually does have a lot of power to it if we can really. And carry this through over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, thank you. And I think eclectic maybe is a good word as well. It's a little eclectic right now.
It's like just.
That's
Well,
great.
It's 100 or 150 years of evolution.
so.
Go ahead.
Performance
Character.
indicators, I would say we should probably put in here some sort of checkpoint that we revisit this in 1 year and. Even if we don't have perfect performance indicators now, but have a checkpoint 1 year after implementation. So that we can then start making some of the marker improvements.
Do we have any metrics at all on foot traffic? I mean, I see in the Oregonian articles about foot traffic now versus, this year. That would be a fascinating way to see.
Let's add that as a performance indicator, we can.
I would assume there are ways to automate that tracking without doing facial recognition, scaring people.
We're gonna get AI right on every corner to. Acknowledge you every time you walk past that.
And we can gauge how happy people are.
There we go.
Based on facial recognition. Are people smiling now in Old Town or are they not?
There's a term for that. Flag mirror.
Yeah, that's
a show about it.
There's
There's a marketing term for that now, and that they use to engage in
Okay.
someone's emotional state of mind as they experience something wild.
Yeah, totally.
I think also the performance indicators, to my mind, would be incorporating a survey with Main Street. Having them and the chamber have a couple of surveys now and a survey in 2 years to see have we improved and make sure we have similar questions. It's really frustrating sometimes to see some of these plans then just get shelved, and so to have performance indicators that are measurable and timed so that we revisit it would be.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love that idea. Yeah.
How do some of our thoughts slash recommendations get incorporated into next week's hearing? Like, I'm guessing we're not gonna be changing any of these diagrams based on our conversation tonight, but we talked about bioswale stuff, we talked about site G, site E, Cannery Square, other things.
Yeah.
I mean, how do those make it into ultimately going to council in some fashion?
Yeah, I think frankly, there's some stuff that's not, like, not everything you said here is gonna be reflected, I guess, in writing this plan, right? The big thing I wanted to get out of you guys was prioritization. Make sure we didn't miss anything really big. Like, was there anything glaring that you guys wanted added on? Was there anything to take off? And then prioritization. So that's the main thing I wanted to get out of you guys. Really, there's quite a bit, I haven't read it in a while, but there's quite a bit of context, I guess, in these chapters. And I think that's how I would envision getting some of the details in here. So just sort of revise the paragraphs, if you will, of to kind of say, to add the color, if that makes sense. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it seems like this was already kind of pre-vetted with council, so it's not like we're gonna be making changes and then re-recommending it.
It was, I think you guys are on like the document itself, you know, kind of on the margins at this point, making the changes. But if there was something that you guys were like, that's a terrible idea, like we would hear you out on that and we would take that back to council.
I think having more flexibility in the Cannery Square area.
Yep.
So that it flexes whichever way is more appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, the building that's right there next to Cranley can make it be like a light shade of gray instead of the same color or some sort of indication.
That
that
is my
it's-
key concern. Too much development right there where the people space is.
Okay.
And it's too.
Too high, too tall.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we can make those less certain, you know, that there's more understanding that some of this is still in flux.
Yeah, I mean,
Significantly
just
in
talking
flux.
here, but like you take away that building that's.
Sideways.
Exactly, you take that away, I mean, that looks like it about doubles the size of Cannery Square and your first building is that parallel one there. So, yeah, we will make sure to incorporate, and frankly, Commissioner Vance, I've heard from the mayor and a few others, like, they really want to expand Cannery Square. And so I don't know for sure that's gonna happen, but it like, you're on the same wavelength with them.
So if Cannery Square were to expand, like, is the vision for it to expand with more hardscaping or to incorporate more softscaping, more?
It's a good question.
Grass,
I think
yeah.
TBD,
Okay.
TBD, we would get a landscape, a landscape architect for this and have them help with, and we do alternatives and that type of thing.
Yeah. So I think expanding the green grass area or having more of it in Cannery Square, I think could be beneficial.
And having it be level, I mean, right now, there's a little mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Personally,
Clearly is not available.
yes, personally, I love the idea of some nice or really nice grass, you know, kind of mixed in with pavers or something. I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
The super quick question, there was allusion in here to a worry that maybe signage and wayfinding might bring too many people in. I remember when I read that, my first thought was, it's only so big and there are only so many businesses and there's only so much parking. How could we possibly bring in too many people? But I wondered, that's another question where I wonder if other people would disagree. I don't know how you could go, oh man, we shouldn't have put that signage in, we got too many people.
When you're driving around looking for a parking spot.
The other thing they've talked about it was trying to look outside, because everybody thinks they need to park within 100 feet of where they're going. If we were to look at some of the other areas that we go to where you park and then you come, you know, could we get partnerships with old middle school or some of those other where you have parking areas and people can walk 4 blocks to town and then create that walking trail so that we're not only focused on having parking in our downtown. Why not have the parking a little bit further out so that people are walking to and from?
I guess I've always not minded walking as much as other people do. So I don't think of having to walk 4 blocks to be inhibiting, but for some people do.
True, like I said last work, I mean, yeah, walking, biking, all that stuff's great. I like a lot of I think it's within our goals of this area too, but. You know, my kids are a little bit older now, but when they're really little, I'm not bike riding there, and I'm not gonna walk in there. If we can't park near it, we're just not gonna go, right? It has to be addressed for the people of Sherwood. And that was kind of the heart behind my question originally, Counselor Giles, is like, who is this for?
I see.
It's for us, and we need to make it for us.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, I think in my opinion, it primarily is, and that's the. Let me sure, the events bring in other people as well, certain events bring in other people, but the tree light ceremony, for example, that's a local, right? Those are, and so I think that's primarily the main focus. And, you know, I don't see us, well, let me just say this, I don't think we have a problem yet. And I think it's really important, and you guys are saying the right things, and we'll pay attention to it as well. Yeah, frankly, this is a multi-year process, but we're not too far into development, into growth, where we're trying to correct an issue. And that's what I'm very happy about, is that we're saying, look, we need to watch out for this and make sure we get it right. And I think that's a really good place to be, right? As opposed to, I guess, we're overwhelmed and we're getting a crap load of complaints, and and we gotta try and backtrack, or, we're kind of in a good place to be let's move forward intentionally and get this thing done right. And I think I'm optimistic because.
Great discussion. Thanks all. I need to check out.
Thanks, Commissioner
Thank
Barnes.
you.
Anything else? All right, thank you for the time tonight, and see you guys in the new year. Thank you.
Which one of you would have to